What would you say you do here?
It's the Signal Chords, home of the Underground podcast. A podcast dedicated to up-and-coming bands, labels, artists, and more. Plug in and join your host, Brad Nunnery, as he dives deep into what the future of music has to hold and discover something new along the way. What else do you have to do?
We are Surrender the Ghost. You're listening to Signal Chords, home of the Underground podcast.
It feels like I have been waiting and nothing is moving. I'm standing in line. I see light at the end of the tunnel. My vision is gonna be bright. I think I found what I'm looking for. I just need to try and split my time. But I could be more present. Always staring at screens, I'm most guilty. My mind keeps on saying it's wanting more, but it's time I don't listen, because I miss this. Leaks in my window, made the car smell musty and the floorboards wet. Keep close, so the shit dries out. Windows down, close friends. Ohio skies, sunlight, the summertime leaves to change. Longer days to stay right up. I love being close to home. I remember those times growing up. They made me who I am today. Might not hang out as much as we did, but nothing changes mostly. Yeah, timing can be kinda rough. The cards were dealt and the ones in play. But I promise that I'll never miss a day you need somebody.
That's the latest music video from our friends in Surrender the Ghost. It's called Faster Than Expected. Many thanks to the band for recording that promo for us. Really do appreciate it, guys. Now, Surrender the Ghost are a really killer alt-rock band based out of Columbus, Ohio. And you know what? They are probably going to be on a podcast here this season. I can confirm that now, all right? But for now, you can visit them on any social media platform at Surrender the Ghost. What's up, everybody? My name is Brad Nunnery. Welcome to Signal Chords, home of the Underground podcast, Season 3, Episode 10, presented by my really good friend Jeff Small over at 1603 Designs. My guest tonight is Chad Jensen. He is the frontman and guitar player for the band Bridge the Gap, a really killer melodic punk band based out of Utah. Their brand new record, Gainsayer, is out now. It's their follow-up from their debut record back in 2023 called Secret Combinations. I'm super excited to talk to Chad all about the new songs, working with Bill Stevenson once again at the Blasting Room in Colorado, as well as we're going to nerd out on some 90s nostalgia punk rock. Can't wait to share this with you guys. Really great conversation. We dive deep into a lot of the songs from Gainsayer, but let's get into one of those songs right now, shall we? Let's do it. It's called In and Throws, and it's on Signal Chords, home of the Underground podcast.
Train that jumped the track. I can't think
Chad, Bridge the Gap. What's going on, buddy?
Dude, so stoked to finally be here with you, Brad. Like, we tried to make this happen before,
Yeah.
but it was meant to be. So here we are, stoked to chop it up, brother.
Yeah. And I think you and I previously had a meeting to set up before the album dropped, but now that the album is out, it's even better because we could talk more about the songs and don't have to worry about whether or not we could say things here and there. But we have kind of carte blanche tonight, so I'm excited to talk all about Gainsayer, the new record, man. How does it feel to finally have it out after all this time of recording it and promoting it, and pre-promoting it and releasing the singles, and now the album's finally out? How does it feel? Is that, taking a big breath now?
It really is, dude. It's like one of my favorite parts about being in a band and writing songs and stuff is like the feedback you get on the art. I think music is a very unique form. It's the best form of art, in my opinion, but because there's so many different ways to interpret music, and it's like a special snapshot in time, like the takes that it took to get whatever on the vocals or that drum part or the lead or whatever. It's just really cool. But dude, we had this record in the can about a year ago. I finished vocals middle of April last year, and it just took a long time to get our label ducks in a row. Or else, our original plan was for this to hopefully come out early fall. That was our original plan of 2024. But it ended up coming out the way it needed to make sure we got the right label partners and stuff like that. So it worked out well. But yeah, dude, I'm just stoked to finally have it out there, man, and let people hear what we've been talking about now for what's been like months and months.
Yeah, I mean, that must be like so hard as a musician, especially if you had like, the album in the can for a year, and I'm one of those type of people that like I'm an instant gratification kind of guy. It's like soon as it's done, I want it out there, but I know it's a process and I know it's not easy, and especially when you're hopping on labels, because I know you're on a previous label before, but now you're on with Double Helix here in the States, and you're also on P Records out in Australia, and Spam, of course, which is the new Fat Records of the modern era, as far as I'm concerned. Spam's doing some huge things. I love what Double Helix is doing here in the States as well. So glad to see that you're on the Double Helix family and the other labels as well. So how does it feel being with them now?
Double Helix is Jeff and M. They do such a great job, and they're so genuine. And one of the things I love about them is if they say it, they will do it. So if they say they're going to do it, it happens. And, just in the music business or in just life in general, that's not the most common thing. A lot of people will tell you what you want to hear, or they have good intentions, but we all know that saying about what the road to hell is paved with and all that. But they just do what they say they're going to do. They're genuine fans of Bridge the Gap, which is really cool. And they had a really good plan in place for us to make sure we had this worldwide focus on the album, the promo, the run up, and then distribution. So love DHR, been stoked to be on Double Helix Records.
Yeah, they're really great people, and I deal with Jeff and M a lot with a lot of their other bands, and they've been really supportive of this page. So shout out to Jeff and M over at Double Helix Records for sure. All right, so this is the second record, your sophomore record, should I say? It's definitely not the sophomore slump record, because it's some bands have that sophomore slump, but this one comes out raging. I love everything. I've spent the last weekend just like really listening, and you and I are been going back and forth as far as like songs and meetings and stuff. We're going to talk about that too, but this is your second meeting up with Bill Stevenson over at the Blasting Room out in Fort Collins, Colorado. So you guys pretty much almost like family to Bill in the Blasting Room. How'd that process go this time around?
Dude, the first time we went there, it was very perfunctory and like in the beginning anyway, very business, like, hey, you're here paying for a service. We're going to provide that service to the best of our ability. Then about halfway through, you start bonding and making friends and whatnot. And then the second time we went for Gainsayer, it was like returning back with the boys. It was like everybody happy to see each other and catching up. And it's like a mix between like being at like a punk rock summer camp and the punk rock museum, and then hanging out with your buddies, because from the second you walk into the blasting room, dude, it's this long ass hall. In fact, if anyone's seen the Descendants doc Filmage, when it first starts talking about Bill, or maybe not when it first starts, but it has this scene of him getting out of his truck, walking up, then he walks down this long hall, and that hall, just all the history of that studio, from the records to the different promos, signed this, signed that. And so for 90s era melodic punk nerds like us, we're just like, even just, you've been there for 3 weeks, it's still not passe. You know, you go, I'm gonna run out to the car and get something. You walk out, you're going through that hall and you're stopping, you're just looking, like, where am I? But yeah, dude, it was fun, man, working with those guys again. And it's always educating too. You know, you always learn so much from those guys.
Yeah, and you know, it's just got to be kind of surreal, you know, if you're a fan of that 90s, you know, and you are, and I am as well. And it just must be so surreal to actually be in that studio, and you know, after all these years of just being a fan, and then finally getting your chance to go in, you know, and be able to do it and work alongside them. That's, you know, that's the dream right there, right? And you know, and working with them, right?
Dude, it's so cool. I mean, people maybe have heard us talk about this before, about like the genesis of how we ended up at the blasting room. But long story short, when we started demoing songs back in like 2022 for fun, we were like, hey, you know, we're like not 19-year-old broke ass kids anymore. So like, we should do something with this. And if we were going to take it to like a studio and work with a producer, who would you want it to be? And like, first thing out of my mouth was Bill Stevenson in the blasting room, because so many of my favorite albums have his and Jason Livermore's fingerprints on them. And I mean, the first time I remember being aware of what the blasting room was would have been like 98, 99, whatever year Operation Phoenix by Good Riddance came out, because I'm still one of those guys, you know, I collect the music. I want to open up the liner notes, read the liner notes, read the lyrics while I'm listening and all that stuff. And, I remember it said that, you know, produced by Bill Stevenson, recorded at the blasting room, mix and master Jason Livermore. And at that time, even though I was a Descendants fan, I was like, and an All fan. I actually was one of those weird guys that was more of an All fan than a Descendants fan. That has since changed, but back then that was very true. And I didn't put 2 and 2 together back then. I didn't realize that it was that Bill that produced. But anyway, so many just classic albums. I mean, even like going forward, like Propaganda's supporting cast was done there, soup to nuts, just so much good shit, bro. And so it's an honor to be able to even be there, let alone have those same guys working on your music.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the first record I remember, and I'm like you too, right? I come from that. Read all the liner notes. Who are the bands thinking? You know, what are the lyrics about? All that kind of stuff. Where it was recorded at? All that kind of stuff. And I think one of the first times I heard of the blasting room was, I think it was Rise Against Revolutions Per Minute. I think that was one of the first records for me. I'm pretty sure that was it. But then after that, you know, any of the bands that came out that I was really into, I would look at it. I'm like, oh, of course they're at the blasting room, like Teenage Bottle Rocket and, you know, all these other bands. And you're like, oh shit, you know, it's just a, you know, hodgepodge of just, you know, bands that are doing it and carrying on that tradition, you know, that punk rock tradition. And your band has done that. And we were talking about that before we hit record. And, you know, what I love about Bridge the Gap is you guys, you know, carry on that tradition, but you know, create a modern version of it. And just, you know, in our hearts, that's, you know, the Fat Records era, the Epitaph when they were really great era, the Nitro Records, all that kind of stuff, all those record labels that you followed, and you followed every single band on that label. You know, that's, you know, that reminds me, you know, the Bridge the Gap. And we're going to talk about Zero Down, and we're going to talk about Jim Cherry too. You know, reading lyrics and reading all that kind of stuff. And we're going to talk about Broken Language and how that all came about. But yeah, man, I'm right there with you, dude. And you know, that's so awesome that you're able to do it, and especially two times in a row. Sometimes only people get one shot at it, and you know, they never get called back and all that kind of stuff.
Dude, it was so weird because we have a couple of guys in the band, are like, I don't even know what you would call it, but they're like numbers guys, where, you know, you're driving down the street or you're on tour or something, and they'll see a license plate and go like 44. Or they'll look at the clock and go, hey, look, dude, it's 144 or it's 444. But the number was 44. And they just, like, Ryan and Jeff in our band kept talking about that. And there was like a thing amongst them. And so it kind of became like this symbolic thing. for Bridge of the Gap. In fact, sometimes like when I'm sending off a group text, like I'll put 444 at the end, like as a sign off, just nerdy shit. But the reason I even bring that up is Jeff is the one who reached out to Bill to see about even ever working with us, period. I mean, the blasting room's always going to take the business. They want the business, but whether Bill works on it or not and produces is a different, he chooses what he wants to do on that front. But he returned his first return email to Bridge of the Gap was 4/4/23. And so we took that as a, 22, sorry. We took that as a divine sign. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, he got back to us and he got back to us on 4/4. Let's go.
Oh shit. And what did you send him to make him want to say it? Did you send him a particular song?
So
or a whole bunch of EP, or an EP or like 4 or 5 songs, and he checked it out and he said, all right, let's do this.
So Jeff sent the original email, and I think it was rather like straightforward, like, hey, we're interested in coming and recording. We're this kind of a band. Would you be interested in working with us and producing Bill? And so he responded and was like, yeah, maybe send me some music. Let me hear it. So we sent him the demos from there. And so that would have been the songs that had demoed vocals on it. So that would have been like, back then, that would have been like Secret Combinations, My Creation, maybe like Up. And he was like, yeah, cool. I'm down. Here's basic. And then it got down to like the business of what it would cost and here's my windows. Cause he's always on tour, dude. Like he's still at 60 now, maybe 61. Did he turn 61? But he's still out there grinding hard, man. They're still making, hey, the Descendants while the sun's shining. And so you're as a band, and plus all of us, we're grown ass men with families and mortgages and jobs and careers. And so figuring out the right window where we can do it and he could do it was always a little bit of a challenge, but we got that done. But that's how it kind of shook out.
That's awesome, man. And that's like I said, it's got to be a dream, and so happy for you guys and doing your thing. And it's funny because I was reading your bio and just rereading it. I've read it over a whole bunch of times, but it says in your bio, it says arriving seemingly out of nowhere in 2023. So and it was kind of crazy. And when I read that, I was like, you know what, you're right, because when Secret Combinations came out, I was blown away. I'm like, where the hell has this band been? You know what I mean? Like it was so good, and it was so like modern, just everything in my wheelhouse that I love about punk rock, all that kind of stuff. And then I'm like, oh, I got to check out their back catalog. And it was like the only record
there is.
I was like, what the fuck, man? Yeah. Where did these guys come from? So let's dive a little bit into your history and where'd you guys come from? And did you, I know you guys are out in Utah and stuff. Were you guys in previous bands before and all that jazz?
Dude, but for what it's worth, before I get into that, you're not alone. Like Bill didn't know what the hell to make of us. Cause usually, look, I'm not going to get into the nitty gritty, but it ain't cheap to record at the blasting room, right? And so usually a band, and especially if Bill's on it too, because that's a little added extra thing. But if a band's showing up there, they're usually a pretty established outfit. They're out touring, they've got a back catalog. More often than not, a label's paying for the record. There's something there. And so when we first got there, he was like, didn't know what the hell to make of us, because like dudes that are doing like a midlife project aren't splurging to go to the freaking blasting room. And I remember he even emailed us at one point. He's like, hey, this was after we'd already scheduled it and everything. And he was probably trying to figure out who we were. He's like, I can't find you guys on Spotify. I'm like, because we're not there, dude. But anyway,
that's so funny.
Our band, we were all in the same band. We're all from a town on the southern Utah. It's like right on the southwest corner border of Utah, Nevada, Arizona, where those three the corner intersect, called St. George. And it's about an hour and 15 minutes north of Vegas. So like growing up, most of the shows, until we started as a band being able to bring bands through our town in St. George, like we go to Vegas for everything, In fact, that's where I met Jim Cherry. I know we'll talk about that later, but anyway, and so we were all in a band. It was called Unfold, and it was a band I started when I was 18, 19. So that would have been like 97. 97 is when I started it, and we pushed it hard, went on tour, put out music, played on the Warped Tour in 01 and 02. and we went till about 05 and then broke up and kind of went our separate ways. Everybody, settled down, whatever you want to call it. And then basically what happened, dude, is I started, and it actually had nothing to do with the pandemic, but around the pandemic, it was a period of time where I got interested because I'm the primary songwriter and I never stopped writing songs. So even though we weren't in the band anymore, like if I have like a need to play guitar and so I always kept writing songs. So I had this and I don't know how to read music or anything, so I have to remember it. And that was cool about phones becoming smartphones because then I could film myself and not have to remember it. But so I had this like rat hole of songs. At that time, it was probably like 25, 30 songs. And I got really interested in learning how to home record because I wanted to demo and just send it to my friends and say, hey guys, check out this song I wrote. That was it. And so that's what I did. And then who would I send it to? I'd send it to my buddies and then the guys from my band. And so the guys in the band were like stoked, but everybody's busy running around. And then one day Jeff's like, these are dope, dude. We should get together and have fun. I'm like, yeah, come out. I hadn't seen him in many years, dude. He came out to my house. We had a fun weekend. We wrote a song. We recorded like 2 or 3 songs that ended up on the record. And that's when he was like, dude, these are dope songs. We should do something with them. And that's, you know where the story goes from there. So that's really the backstory. That our band was called, our original band was called Unfold. And it was the same exact kind of music, dude. And so people are like, well, why didn't you just keep going as Unfold? And it was more of just like a juju thing. We wanted to keep that in the past. And this is the now. So that's kind of the backstory.
Yeah, it's like in the next chapter, right? Because you'll be constantly living in the past if you go by that old name. You know what I mean? It's just like you're rehashing like the past. Like we're all grown adults. We have a different purpose and behind the music, all that kind of stuff, and it makes sense, man. And I think that was a smart move for sure,
dude. And that's absolutely true. Back then, it was our everything. The band was like everything about our future was centered around the hope and the dream of the band making it. And by making it for us, it was like, hey, could we pay our bills with our music? If we could go on tour and come back and have the rent paid, we've made it. And so but here's the problem with that is you're attaching an expectation. And when you do that, that then creates expectations, which create pressure and other things. And so, anyone who's been in a band or in any kind of a collective endeavor, could be starting a business, could be playing sports, it could be anything. But like, if you're doing it for that reason, it can, doesn't mean it can't work out and that you won't succeed, but it can create little, obstacles and vibes. Whereas when we got back together, dude, it was at first it was just a Chad and Jeff passion project thing, and it didn't actually become Bridge the Gap. When we reached out to Bill, we said we're called Bridge the Gap, blah blah blah. But like it was a project when we got there, and it stayed a project until we started getting the mixes back. And by the way, leading up to that on Secret Combinations, I had stayed in touch with Ryan Thompson, our drummer, for all those years for the most part, and especially the preceding 3 or 4, we'd been jamming and having fun, not really like trying to do anything, just having fun. And so I'm like, hey, dude, Jeff and I are going to go do this thing. Do you want to play the drums on it? And he's like, dude, all you had to say was you were going to do it, but Blasting Room, Bill Stevenson, let's go.
Yeah.
So he learned the songs on Secret Combinations in like 3 weeks, 2 weeks.
Wow.
And then we invited also Sean to come out, and it ended up just being this fun thing. And we weren't like, hey, let's be a band and push this till we got the mixes back. And we're like, damn, this is dope. We got to do something with it. And kind of the rest is history.
Yeah. And that's, you're saying like, when you're putting the pressure on yourself to do, hustle and do this. And when you're younger and you have all these expectations and dreams and aspirations, and sometimes it doesn't work. And it's when and I found that, I found this way in life too, to where it's like, stop worrying about, the future, whatever, just do what you're doing. Like if my YouTube videos get 100 views or they get 1,000 views, like I'm just happy I got 10, you know what I mean? Like my expectations are so low, and and everything's working, and people are still coming and wanting to be a part of the podcast. And then I feel it's like when you finally just like let go of putting pressure on yourself to make it or do that kind of stuff, I think that's when everything kind of falls in line and things happen for a reason, right? So you ran a gun for numerous amount of years, but then you did a project and then everything worked out,
Yeah.
within a matter of like less time than, really pushing it out.
Dude, it's crazy. So like now it's just, we started doing it purely for the joy and passion of it.
Yeah.
And because of that, attaching zero expectations,
Yeah.
the universe goes, okay, now we'll open the door. Because I don't know if it's because the universe goes, or God, or however you want to view it, goes, okay, your heart's now in the right place or whatever.
Yeah.
All of a sudden doors were opening to us that seemed like completely closed when we were all in, so to speak, back in the day. So it's just crazy. And it's funny because I've learned that now through the wisdom of experience, right? Being like 45 and having been down the road, is like, if you do it, if you start something out, it could be anything, dude. It could be, you want to write books, you want to be a painter, you want to, whatever. If you just do it because you're having fun with it and it's a passion, and you stay consistent at it because you love doing it, those are the things that tend to grow legs and sprout roots and go on to be bigger things, at least in my life. And I've
Yeah.
tried doing it the other way around, where you're starting with a specific objective or goal in mind and trying to
Right.
work toward it. And again, I've succeeded in those same kind of things where I have a goal and I reach it and that's what I wanted. But something about the art side of things, if
Yeah.
you attribute too many expectations to it, it has, in my opinion, some kind of a muffling, like a muting effect on. And so again, doesn't mean
Yeah.
you still can't succeed in that. It's just that it's almost like it's a little bit harder to reach.
Yeah, and I think it's so true, because I think if I would have started this podcast, when I did get out of radio and many years ago and started this and wanted to do this and be the next big thing and concentrate and be the next Joe Rogan or whatever, be whatever person or whatever, I think it wouldn't have succeeded because I was trying too hard, or I was trying to bring something to life that I wasn't ready for yet, right? It took the pandemic to just say, hey, with me, it took the pandemic to say, hey, listen, what do you love doing? You have this day job that pays the bills, but are you happy? No. Okay. What's going to make you happy? I'm like, you know what? Music makes me happy. Discovering new music makes me happy. All right.
Totally.
How can we do that? And I'm like, all right, well, let me just start an Instagram page. And then it formed into a podcast and all that kind of stuff. And I just said, screw it. I don't like myself on video, and, I record myself on video, and, here we are, I'm 3 seasons in. So it's just, it's all a matter of time. It's all a matter of time, until everything happens, and you just can't, worry about it too much.
Especially if you are consistent with the effort. So that's the key that a lot of people miss, is they're like, I created this great thing, why is no one paying attention? Or like, I've done it a few times, why am I not succeeding? But the reality is you actually have to stay consistent. And dude, I have no doubt with this show, Signal Chords, for example, the home of the Underground podcast, dude, if you do this consistently and you just never stop, and you just, and it's obviously in a domesticated setting, it's important that the missus is on board for this, but the good things will come. It's really only a matter of time. That's one of the laws of the universe, dude. I can promise.
No, I'm right there with you. All right, so let's talk about the first single that you guys released off of Gainsayer and why it was. So, In the Throes, I love it. It's your first single.
Yeah.
Why did you choose this song to be the lead off from your sophomore record?
Dude, I don't know. I now have doubts on whether we picked the right one to lead with after I watched this. Artists are sensitive, so cut me some slack here. But the dudes from Punk Rock Radar and Dying Scene were kind enough to review our record right before it came out, which was really cool. And they gave us a really good rating. So props to them. Much love and respect, John and Dylan. But they weren't too stoked on Throws. We were stoked on Throws. We're like, oh, it's got kind of like the metal-y intro of like a Over the Target off our first record, but it's more of a mid-tempo, breakdown / kind of thumper anthem. And I don't know, we just kind of felt that would be a good one to lead with. Some of us wanted Brothers to be the first single, but its subject matter of the song is such of a bummer nature that we're like, do we want to set everybody up on a bummer on the new record? Because it wouldn't be very representative of the album. So I don't know. We just felt like there was enough there. Bill liked that song too. Bill was into throws so I don't know. We just felt like, it's got the big chorus. It's got the weird breakdown at the end where it goes to 3/4 timing out of nowhere. And people are like, what the hell is happening right now? But it may be a little bit long. It might be a little bit long for a first single. That's the only thing is like, you want to try and keep it pretty tight when you're whetting the appetite for people. But hey, it's revisionist history now. We can't do anything about it. But
yeah, and I absolutely
love that song.
yeah, I love the song too. And I know I was talking to John from Punk Rock Radar because he asked me about something, and I was like, "Hey man, I'm interviewing Chad. Do you have a question for him?" And he's like, "Yeah." So he's like, "Yeah, what's his favorite guitar that he owns?" So him and I were going back and forth. So speaking of which, you brought it up, so I figured I'd ask you before we get back into the songs.
Dude, that's like asking me to pick who's my favorite child, bro. I mean, I'm sitting in a room with like 25 guitars hanging on the wall. Ooh, man, it really just depends on the day. I would say one of my prized possessions, I won't ever take it on the road, but if anyone watches the Brothers music video, the guitar I'm playing in that is a genuine 1963 Guild Thunderbird, and that is one of my most prized possessions. I've been collecting guitars my whole life, and I had to wait for I got such a screamer on that thing. The dude that was selling it on Reverb just didn't know what he had. And not that I exploited him, but like he asked what he was asking for, and I just paid him the money he was asking for.
Right.
But,
yeah. Just
that was one of my favorites. But
yeah,
Guild,
what's that? Go ahead.
Guild is one of my favorites, man. As far as they're an original American vintage manufacturer that was made in the States. And, they tried to compete with Gibson in terms of like, I won't get into weird guitar nerd shit, but their specs, what the guitars are made of, how they're measured, all that stuff. Guild,
right.
but I'm just old school Gibson guy, dude. I'm a set neck Gibson Les Paul. So I probably right now my favorite guitar that I play all the time every day and that I'll probably play on tour is my 1959 reissue Gibson Les Paul. It's dope.
All right, awesome. Shout out to John. Shout
out, John. Appreciate you, bud.
Yeah, there's your answer, and give in throws another try there, buddy. No, all right. So let's talk about Brothers. You know what? I don't know if it's a sensitive subject, but I feel like we should talk about it because I think it's a universal subject. Kind of dealing with loss and if it's a friend or if it's a family member. I know that this is something specific to you specifically. Writing this song and actually performing it and even doing the music video must be tough. But if you can give a little back history of the song and kind of what it's all about and who you're singing about.
Yeah. So I grew up with my two cousins on my mother's side, Jimmy and Brian, and we always lived near each other. We were all the same age. Brian was the oldest, then Jimmy, then me, but we were all within 2 years. And like, I got into punk rock through Jimmy and Brian. The first punk rock song I ever heard came through Brian. And we were tight, but as you get older and stuff, you separate, get married, have kids, this and that. And then also a lot of times geographically you end up moving in different places. So like we didn't stay all in the same block forever, so to speak, but we were always tight. But those two, as actual brothers, they were just so tight, dude. Like had a closer relationship than like most dudes have with their wives in terms of like that trust and intimacy and could tell each other anything, that kind of thing. And unfortunately, Brian passed away unexpectedly back in 2017, and it utterly, I mean, anyone's devastated when a family member is just passes away. Like anyone who's been through loss knows what that's like. But in this case, it just absolutely broke Jimmy. Like it without sharing too much, because he's such a huge fan of the band. We used to be in bands together, by the way, Jimmy and I.
Oh, okay.
But he's like Bridge the Gap's biggest cheerleader. So I know he'll be watching this, so I'm not going to share too much of his dirty laundry. But it was shout out to Jim. But it was brutal on him, and I was there, of course, to try and help Jim and be there for him as figurative brothers, so to speak, even though we're cousins. And so that song's written from Jimmy's perspective.
Okay.
His brother being gone. So it's my take on what I saw from him. So I'm, writing it from his perspective. But a lot of the emotion I felt losing my cousin too is in that. So yeah, that's what that song's about. And the music video at the very end, Eric Cannon, who we worked with down in Vegas, did such a good job. At the very end of that video, it shows a picture, and that's Brian, who passed away. So shout out
Oh wow.
to Eric for having such a awesome, artistic, poignant eye.
You and I could conquer anything that threw at us. Back to back, we wouldn't fall without a fight. It was a comfort knowing you were always on my side. We knew the dangers of the chemicals that made us well. Taking the edge off was too easy an excuse. The worst came true. If I could, I'd follow you. There's too much left for me to do. I'll see you in my dreams. If I could get some sleep tonight. I'm tired and my mind's not right, and the pills still come with strings.
Yeah, and it's got to be I love the way that you've decided to write it from that perspective, and I think it would be a little bit different if it was your exact brother kind of a deal with like when you're on stage and all that kind of stuff. But it is still family, still your cousin. You guys are still boys, and so I know that's probably going to be a tough one to perform at times. In this song in particular. And another song that we're going to talk about, I won't ruin it, but with this album, the next step up, I think you're doing a little bit more differently vocally, as far as getting in the little higher ranges, that you did, not so much on Secret Combinations, but I see that you're starting to challenge yourself a little bit vocally, and and hitting those one notes, and that's what I really love about that song, because I could feel the emotion behind it. You know what I mean? It's like you're almost screaming it to where it's like, I get it. Yeah,
that's cool to hear, man. Because it's a hard song to sing. The verse, bridge, no problem. But that I once watched this interview with Chester Bennington of Linkin Park. It was one of those things where I was like thumbing through reels, and it just was the next thing that popped up. Although I do like Linkin Park for what it's worth. I don't know if I just lost punk rock points, but my kids
no, you're cool, man. I like them too, so it's all good.
They were obsessed, my kids, with Transformers when it came out, the live action, and they were always on the soundtrack. So my kids would always ask, "Hey, can we get the soundtrack?" And then we'd listen to it in the car. So I became, kind of more of a passive fan. But anyway, I watched Chester Bennington say that he hated, for most of his career, he hated singing that one song of theirs called "Crawling." Na 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 na, and it's the same note, dude, over and over, and it's in the highest part of his range, and he just hated it. And then eventually he kind of, I don't know, he changed his opinion and liked singing it. But this song is my version of his Crawling, in that the chorus, as a singer, the chorus, dude, is just high, 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 and it's all right in that same kind of register. But it's cool to hear that about the vocals, because, like, dude, when I went the first time, I had been, there's a thing called vocal athleticism, and just like any athleticism, as a skater, as a snowboarder, if you play basketball, whatever, there's that natural whatever that you're going to be endowed with, so to speak. But the more you utilize your athleticism, the better it'll get. Same thing with singing, dude. And I had not seriously sang for 15 years. When we went to the blasting room, and then I chose to sing for the first time with Bill Stevenson, it was like utterly humiliating. But he taught me so much, dude, like about just things that I had forgotten, because when you're practicing 4 or 5 times a week as a band, you're out on tour, you're playing shows all the time. So much of that stuff just becomes like your body just knows, your brain just knows to do this, that, and the other. But when it's kind of lying dormant for that long, a lot of the stuff that I knew just inherently when I was a kid, I had to basically be retaught, mostly by Bill. So that was a crash course. By the time you get to Gainsayer, dude, like, I had learned so much from Bill. I had sought out other education on vocals and stuff once I got home. And so I just had a much easier time of it on Gainsayer, because I knew what I was doing more. And it kind of, I think, comes through more as a singer that's like, instead of a guy that's just up there going for broke, just belting it out and hoping to hell that the engineer goes, yeah, that was in pitch, next. I was like, it's more using the vocal as an instrument that complements the music, instead of just vocals on top, powering through. Not to minimize Secrets that much, but like that. So it's cool to hear, man. Thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I was, I'm always looking to try to, figure out like little points of previous records and all that kind of stuff because, I mean, collectively it's bridge the gap, right? So when I hear
Yeah.
secret combinations and I hear Gainsayer, it's bridge the gap. Your
Right.
style, the way that you guys play, and you guys definitely have that. And we're gonna get into this song here, and this is a good lead in because you were the first band that I ever heard that was in the same veins as Jim Cherry's songwriting and all the songs that he did with Strung Out. And he was one of the because I went to recording engineering school, I went to Full Sail and all that kind of stuff. So I was a real
Oh
big
shit.
nerd. What's that?
No kidding. That's cool.
Yeah, so I was a real big nerd as far as like songwriting. Even though I couldn't write a song, I can't play an instrument very well. I try to play bass, but anyways, I digress. So one of the first and probably only real true songwriters that I really like got into, and I said, okay, and I broke it down. Okay, it was Jim Cherry and Strung Out, Exile in Oblivion. And all that, Suburban Teenage Wasteland Blues. And I would see all the ones that, that Jim Cherry did, and his style and his delivery was just like, that is exactly, like I love. I mean, I love Jason's songs too, but like it was Jim's that really
Special.
dug into me. And like when I heard Bridge the Gap and Secret Combinations, I'm like, man, this sounds a little bit like Zero Down. I think it definitely has some influence to it. And so I was just like, oh hell yeah. And then and following you over these past few years and knowing that you work with Jim's family and all that kind of stuff, and I see that you're connected with them, and then with Broken Language, which we're going to talk about now. I know that he had written some of this stuff, some of the verses and choruses. Can you tell me how you got involved with Jim's family and how you said you met him earlier on the podcast, all that kind of stuff. But I'm really curious as a nerd, as a Jim Cherry nerd, fellow nerd, should I say,
Fellow.
how everything happened.
Bro, it's a ridiculous, utterly preposterous turning of events. But like you, dude, like Jim Cherry, the way I learned how to play music was by figuring out, listening and playing by ear. So I have a really well developed ear. Like if anything's on the radio, as I'm driving in the car, for example, like I'll be listening to a band, I'll see on a guitar neck where the chords are going. Like because of the way I learned, that's how the wires, so to speak, are connected in my dome. All right. With music, like once I kind of learned how to play and whatnot, like then I really started studying like my favorite songwriters, my favorite bands, and then I realized, oh, there's individual dudes in these bands that are writing these songs. And so my first thing was like Greg Graffin and Brett Gurewitz from Bad Religion. And to this day, they're still my thing, but my favorite thing. But Jim Cherry's songs in Strung Out and Pulley, predating Zero Down, there was just something about it, like you said, that speaks to the soul. And then when you start trying to understand it, I'd figure out how to play the songs and I'd understand how we put the building blocks together a little bit. I was like, wow, dude, this stylistically is just so savvy and I fucking love it, dude. And so I became a huge fan that way too. And, bottom line is you end up getting influenced by the people that, your heroes end up influencing you one way or another. And you try and hope that it's not too overt. We don't want to try and recapitulate Mind of My Own 11.0 or something, but he's definitely, and I've heard it now from so many people, including you, which I take it as a compliment. But even if people don't know the backstory of our connection to Jim and his music, like I take it as a high compliment because he is him and Brett Gurewitz are my two favorite guys of all time in terms of writing songs. And I could nerd out with you and go through all the best songwriters in punk rock.
Maybe there'll be part 2 on the third album. We'll do that.
In the era you and I both love. But so I met Jim when I was a 20-year-old kid and he was on tour with Pulley back in I think it was 99, dude. And we went, he had just been kicked out of Strung Out, and our bass player, I don't know how much of this I should share actually. Hold on, I got to think about this for a sec. I don't think it's that big of a deal. Our bass player, Sean, in Bridge the Gap, Chef Sean, the big guy, like you, he went to engineering school. He went to the Conservatory of Recording Arts and Sciences in Phoenix. And when he graduated, they placed him at stall number 2 in Redondo Beach, which was the studio Pennywise owned collectively back then, up until not too long ago. They ended up selling it, but so he was working there as an engineer. He engineered Element of Sonic Defiance with Darian Rundle, worked on some Pennywise stuff, Deviates record, Time is the Distance, some other great stuff. But anyway, he was literally Strung Out was in the studio at that time recording the first ever music without Jim, Element of Sonic Defiance.
Yeah.
And so we go see Pulley, and we're up front, me and my best buddy Brandon, we're singing every word, you know, Pulley, Jim's rocking it, whatever.
Yeah.
We go back, the show's over, they headlined, we go back and to the merch booth, and this redheaded woman comes up to us and goes, she was near the booth, but maybe not working the booth, but near it. She goes, man, you guys were singing every word. Like, you guys knew every single word. And we're like, yeah. We love Pulley and we love Jim's songs. And like, I started gushing about Jim's songs. And then she goes, you know what? He would love to hear that. You should tell him that. And I'm like, would love to, but yeah. And he's like, she goes, Jim, because the show's over. You know, this is like maybe 15, 20-minute aftermath after the show. And Jim's like, comes walking by, rolling his half stack out to the van. She goes, hey, come talk to these kids. And he goes, all right, I'll come over when I'm done loading this. So he ends up coming over, and she's like, you should talk to these kids because, and then, you know, she relays a few things we said. Dude, he ends up hanging out in the parking lot with us for like almost 3 hours, dude. Just, and Wendy, his wife, got tired of it and just went and like crashed in the car, dude. Like, it was wee hours of the morning. So he was very generous. We talked to him about producing our band Unfold at the time, and he was interested in doing that. And he had told us about how he was working on a new project, and he was going to call it he was going to call it The Immune. And then he later changed it to Zero Down. And anyway, and so we're stoked on that. So that was my one interaction, really. I'd seen Jim perform in Strung Out and Pulley more times than I can remember, but that was the one time I met and hung out with Jim, established a little bit of a connection. And he passed away not too much longer after that, like 2.5 years later, 3 years. And so cut to modern era. This was like, I don't know, dude, right before maybe Secret Combinations came out. I just struck up a conversation with Instagram, kept putting Wendy in front of me. And I'm like,
oh, really?
Yeah. And I think I friended her and she accepted the friend request, or, you know, whatever follow request, she followed back. And then I just was like, yo, do you remember me? And I told her this story that I just told you. And she's like, you know, honestly, I don't remember you, but I don't remember this night, but this is exactly the type of thing I had to deal with as Jim's wife, you know? And so, and we just struck up a friendship, dude. We just struck up a friendship. And now she's like family. I love Wendy, and she's a mentor and inspiration. And now that doesn't really get into how we ended up having some unpublished Jim lyrics on the record, but that's like how it's started.
That's amazing. And the song, you know, as a Jim Cherry fan as well, like I'm trying to dissect like everything, you know, I'm trying like the way that everything is. And I know you said that he, you know, wrote all the choruses in the second verse, and you did the first verse. Is that how it goes?
Yeah. So
right?
Well, I got to give you the little, okay. So here's what happened is we become very close buds, Wendy and I. And one day she says to me, you want to read some, I don't know how much of this I should tell you. Well, it's okay. Again, here I am going, does she want anyone hearing this? I don't think she would mind, but she offered out of the blue. She says, would you like to read some of his lyrics? And unpublished lyrics. And I said, does a horse piss where she pleases? Like, let me see this. And then she emailed me over like a document that was like 17 pages long, Word doc, and not like broken up by a song or, you know, verse, just like 17 pages, dude, of like dense lyrics. Some of them were like tied together. Some of them were like stream of consciousness. Some of them were. And so the nerd in me, I was like, whoa. And I went through and I of course read it all, but, and then not too long after that, almost very casual, she's like, you should use some in a Bridge the Gap song. These are unpublished. So, you know, I'm like, okay. And then I was like, no way, I'm never going to do that. And then to me, I didn't say this to her. I was like, there's no way, man. Like, I'm not even going to try and approach that. He's like a hero. I don't want to tarnish anything about his legacy. Like, and then over time, when she knew we were about to be going back to the blast room, she's like, so have you decided which one you're going to use, which lyrics you're going to use? And I'm like,
she starts turning up the heat and wanting to hear it. Yeah. Like, cause she wants probably some, Yeah, I mean, it's probably so sentimental to her, right? And
Oh,
be
for
able to hear
sure.
his lyrics and have somebody else sing it, and just holding on still. You know what I mean? That's
For
that's
sure.
that's a lot, and it means a lot for her to send it over to you. And I'm sure it means the world to you guys that she's willing to do that.
Oh, dude, totally. And you know what's crazy is long before she ever sent me those lyrics and long before she ever said you should use some, uh, I had demoed the song Broken Language, and I didn't have lyrics for it yet, obviously. And so that's how it works for me most of the time is I have the music completely written and I'll demo it and get it done. And then I got to save it within Pro Tools. I got to name it something. So I come up with these stupid working
Right.
titles. And like, for example, Over the Target was working title was just called Ed's E Song for reasons I won't bore you. This one I had saved because of that intro, that bass intro. I shit you
Mhm.
not, I had it saved as Cherry Bass. And
Oh,
so
nice.
when she's like, have you decided what lyrics you're going to use? I was like, and I realized how important it was to her. It seemed to
Yeah.
me. Then I was like, okay, I got to get serious about this. And this was when I was at the blasting room. And so I decided, well, if I'm going to do it, I should do it on the song that I freaking working titled
Cherry
Cherry
Bass.
Bass, and the rest is history. I had to figure out a stretch. And so, yeah, so second verse and the chorus is Jim. And
Okay.
then I thought it would be too much for it to be every lyric in the song by Jim.
Yeah.
And so I wrote first verse that was complimentary to the subject matter that anyone that knows their backstory knows kind of some of that history. But then I wrote a little bridge, and the rest is history.
There aren't enough words in this broken language to convey or communicate my love for you. It grounds me, gives me purpose in a world that stopped making sense. The life of the drugs and the love of the girl. I was wrong and I can't take it back. Why couldn't your love be enough? I stand and watch as all my bridges burn. There's only me to blame. Promises in vain all start to sound. They start to sound the same. 1,000 chances later and still nothing has really changed. And still you love the same. The life of the drugs and the love of the girl. I was wrong and I can't take it back. Why couldn't your love be enough? I stand and watch as all my bridges burn.
Yeah, it's an incredible song. I love it, and such a really great story because, like I said, I'm a huge fan of Jim Cherry, and that's definitely going to be one of my favorites and go to. And I thought it was just so ironic. First time listening to Bridge the Gap, I immediately thought about Zero Down before I even know that you guys were fans
cool,
of
man.
them. You know what I mean? So I was
Take
like,
that
oh,
as,
that's
like,
freaking badass. I was like, I'll follow this band to the edge because not a lot of people, I mean, a lot of people in our punk community know who Jim Cherry is, right? Like
Yeah.
if you listen to punk, any of that kind of stuff, you know who Jim Cherry is. But
But
for
dude,
those people outside,
he does not get the props he deserves. Like in the
Yeah.
same way that when people start getting nerdy about like honoring songwriters or departed songwriters, even like you'll see never forget Tony Sly stickers at every punk show you go to.
yeah,
There should be just as many never forget Jim Cherry's, and we had some made up. We give them away at our shows. Never forget Jim Cherry stickers. But dude, he's one of the giants. He's one of the giants of punk rock, dude, of all time. That dude's
Yep.
songwriting was on a whole different level, and he spoke to people's souls in a way that most songwriters can only dream of. And I say that as someone who writes songs. Like that dude bore a hole through my soul, dude. Like he spoke to
Yeah.
me. That's how it feels, right? When you connect with
Yeah.
the song
Yeah.
and the songwriter. So he deserves more props than he gets. And anyway,
Yeah.
RIP.
Yeah, rest in peace. So yeah, one last thing. I did order a Zero Down shirt because I know that they the record label that I bought it off had Zero Down shirts, People Punk
Cool.
Rock, and
Yeah.
then I got a sticker, and I'm like, I love the shirt, and like I washed it once. Of course, it doesn't fit anymore, but as rock shirts do. But I do have a Zero Down sticker. And I'm like, I will never stick this anywhere. It's just going to be in like a plastic bag until like I figure out where I want to stick it. Like that's like how important like that sticker. I don't know. I'm weirded. I'm a nerd about stickers, so I'm like,
Same.
all right, I'm not gonna stick this anywhere right now.
Dude, I totally get it. I totally get it. But I have more of those exact same ones. So like, if you ever want a couple more, I'll slip them in the mail and send them out to you.
Oh hell yeah, man! I would love
Yeah.
that. All right, so we're gonna talk about a song that you don't that wasn't a single because you and I were going back and forth on it because I think it's a really cool thing. And as I was doing some research too, and I remembered about another song off of Secret Combinations. All right, so you're a father. You have 4 boys and a girl, right?
Yep. That's how we do it in Utah. We go big.
You're a busy man. I have 3. I have 3 girls, and we were kind of going back and forth on it. And when I was listening to the record, and I was messaging you, and I was like, man, I don't know, for some reason this song always is sticking out. And I didn't really like I knew it was about something or someone, but I didn't really like pay too much attention to the lyrics. But I was just like, well, these are really cool lyrics, but I didn't really dive down into it. And you and I were going back and forth. I'm like, I don't always just stands out to me. And you're like, yeah, do you have kids? And I'm like, yeah, I have 3 girls. He goes, yeah, it's a daddy-daughter song. I'm like, oh. Subconsciously, like I loved it, and I love always and circling back to your vocals and all that kind of stuff. I love what you're doing on the chorus. The chorus is just amazing, and I know that Whippersnapper on Secret Combinations is the song for one of your sons, right?
That one's just more generally message to the kids type song. Our kids, our children.
Okay. Yeah, I might have got that one wrong, but yeah, I love always.
You're in the ballpark. You knew. I mean, it's a message to the kids. You know what I mean? So yeah.
Yeah, and I love always. It's if you check it out, I'm not even going to play it on the podcast because I want people to go and check it out and see for themselves. If you're a father, you have kids. It's one of those songs where hopefully years from now when my kids get into punk rock, that'll play to them and they can listen and think about their old man. You know what I mean? It's one of those songs.
It's very sweet of you to say. I appreciate it, and means a lot. It is a unique song, and that one's written to my daughter, and she uses it as like in her softball. She's 14, so like that's her walk-up song, they call it. Like when she's about to, each kid goes with like they blast their little stereo with whatever their like hype song is. So she rocks that one, which I love. But emotional daddy-daughter song, dude. Kind of like don't want to let you down, hoping for the best. And very personal song, but there's also a lot going on musically in that song because it comes off more as like a kind of straightforward melodic punk pop song type thing, which it is. But dude, pro tip on that: next time you listen, just pay attention to what the bass is doing at the beginning and during the chorus. You'll be like, "What the Sam Hill is going on here?"
All right.
So yeah, dude, that's a favorite of mine too. That'll be in the live set. That's in the live set.
Oh, awesome. Well, hopefully you guys make it down here to Florida or should I say over here to Florida. Love to see you.
Hopefully soon. That's the plan, bro.
Okay. So let's take a turn there. What's next for Bridge the Gap? You got shows lined up, some kind of a tour, record release. Have you already had a record release show or you guys are planning on doing some shows here down the line?
So our band is kind of like, not to go back down this road again, pardon the pun.
Down this road. Nice.
But our band is kind of similar to like Pulley, because Scott Radinsky was in baseball as both a player and then later as a coach. They had 3 months a year to record or tour, and so they could only be active in the fall, like right after baseball ends up until when spring training. And so our band is similar. We're not quite as locked to the schedule that way, but with what we all do professionally and
you guys all had daytime jobs and all that kind of stuff and marriages and
there's
kids.
Specific times of the year that are just easier for us to get away. Summer for us is when that is summer and early spring, and with the record coming out when it did, we didn't want to play a lot of shows before the record. We wanted to wait till after the record. And so we got some stuff cooking this summer. Our record release show is one of our record release shows booked in Salt Lake May 6th. And then we're playing a record release show in Denver on June 20th. And then we have some more dates and around that. And then later in July, we're going to California, playing with a few friends of ours. You'll like one it announces, you'll like to hear the lineup. It's going to be pretty dope. Three people of punk rock alum bands going on that are US bands going and playing a few shows. Awesome. It's going to be dope. But so yeah, we have a few things in the works. Some of them they're booked, but we can't quite announce yet. But you know, we're never going to be the band that's on the road 200 days a year. That's never going to happen.
Sure.
At most for us, like the most we could ever conceivably get away for like sustained period of time is like 2 weeks. 2 weeks is the most we could ever be gone from our lives without everything spinning to hell. Because dude, we're not doing this to make money. We're just doing it for fun.
It's just a passion project. Yeah, for sure.
If we make a buck, dude, it's like cool, man. That goes to the next t-shirt. Like no one's trying to pay their phone bill with this, dude. Like we're just having fun with it. And so for us, a big part of it is balancing the live. Now, we want to play more live, and we're going to be playing more live. But that's what we have kind of cooking in the short term. And then we hope to do more east of the Mississippi, come closer to where you're at. Maybe this fall is a possibility. I'm trying to think of the things we have cooking. But at worst, like this time next year.
Okay. Hey, no, it's all good, man. I'd love to see you guys play. All right, so before we go, I'm gonna do first time ever. I figured since this is the actual 10th episode of season 3, so I'm gonna start off something new. I'm gonna do rapid fire questions. I don't know if it's cheesy or stupid, but I wrote down a whole bunch of questions just in case I got stuck. I didn't know what to ask you, but you're a great conversationalist, and I didn't get stuck this time around. So we're
you never know, right? You never know.
Yeah.
Some people can be real cagey, and others you're like, dude, will you shut up?
Yeah. Well, there's times where like either I don't under prepare, but there's times where I'm like, oh, I need to ask whatever a question or whatnot, and I get I get tied up. But anyways, I want to do a little rapid fire here. All right, favorite band of all time?
Bad Religion.
Favorite record of all time?
Pennywise, Unknown Road.
Underrated band of all time?
I'm gonna say Zero Down, but we've already spoken so much about Zero Down. I'm going to say Good Riddance.
Yes. I knew I liked you. Overrated band of all time?
Oh, man. I don't want to come off as a doucher.
Just say somebody big so you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
AC/DC.
I'll try and put some chops to it. I'll say overrated band. Oh, shit, dude. Let me think. Hold on. Overrated. For a long time, dude, I used to think Rancid was overrated. And then I finally caught the bug, and I'm like, I went through like a 3-year period where I was obsessed with Rancid. Just listen to Rancid every day. So not them, but I would say, shit, I don't know, dude. Overrated. On the spot. I got to give you a real answer, dude. I'm going to say Millencolin.
Really? Oh, wow. That's where you and I disagree. They're one of my favorite bands of all time. All right, Dream Tour.
I love them too. I do love them. I just don't understand why like No Fun at All is not viewed as like the biggest thing to come out of Sweden. Like in terms of music, I love No Fun at All, dude. They're one of my favorites.
Me too, man. I love them as well. All right, so Dream Tour.
Oh, sweet, dude. Like a Dream Tour would be like going out with our friends, the Deviates.
Yes, love the Deviates.
Who else? We maybe I don't know, like buddies, maybe going out with, let's say Deviates, let's say Bridge the Gap Deviates and Authority Zero. That would be a fun tour.
Oh,
that'd be a dream
awesome.
tour. But like nerdy dream kid tour, dude, Bridge the Gap opening for Bad Religion or Pennywise, like that'd be the dream, or Strung Out.
Sure.
I mean, I'm as big a Strung Out nerd as it gets. We could get into the weeds on Strung Out, post Jim.
Yeah.
Late Strung Out, post Jordan eras. We could get nerdy if we want.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's going to be part 5 because we're going to come back because we're going to have a lot to talk about. All right, favorite non-punk band,
Favorite non-punk band? Deftones.
guilty pleasure band that like you would probably get made fun of for listening to,
Uh,
but you're
I
not
mentioned
ashamed.
Linkin Park. I'll say
Yep.
Falling in Reverse.
Okay. All right, good to know. All right, and best live show that you've seen.
Oh, dude, I have so many. So many. Dude, you know what's crazy? I've been in 2 mosh pits. I've been in, a million mosh pits, but like I've been in 2 mosh pits where I genuinely feared for my life. Like where I was like, shit, dude, I'm gonna die in here.
Right.
One of them was at a Deftones show when they were touring on Around the Fur in Vegas. And then the other one, believe it or not, dude, was at the House of Blues in Vegas when Offspring played Self-Esteem. And
Yeah.
so, but I would say, wait, what was the question? All-time favorite, craziest show? What was it?
Best live show you've ever seen.
Dude, first show I ever went to, so maybe it's like a bias there, but the first punk show I ever went to was Pennywise, and they were touring on About Time. So this was 95.
Oh wow.
And dude, this was back when Unknown Road was still real fresh. And that's like that's my favorite thing. And dude, they came out. You could make shape, the lights go out. All right, Pennywise is coming on. And you can start kind of making out shapes, walking onto the stage. And then through the speakers, you hear the piano of Unknown Road. And I was like, oh my dude. And then all of a sudden you hear Fletcher's guitar, dun, 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 and then when Jim comes in with You're Currently, the place explodes, the lights come on, indelible, like seared into my brain forever. And of course, a big part of that answer is that it was my first show, but it also happened to be as someone who then went to millions and played in millions of shows. Epic, dude.
Yeah, well, it's a lot better than my first show. My first show was Vanilla Ice, so it's a little bit
sick.
He was like, "Oh yeah," and he comes out. He came out like on an elevator or something, and he was just like, it was right around the time where they were calling him out because they found out he was actually from Texas. He wasn't from Compton or wherever he was saying he was from or whatever. And I was on a double date. Yeah, it was legendary. I still have the ticket stub. I found it the other day. I was like, holy shit! It's still.
Did you remember when he went and did new metal for a while?
Yeah.
Weird shit.
He did an Ice Ice Baby, a new metal version of Ice Ice Baby, and I used to have a punk metal hardcore show on Saturday nights on Orlando, our rock station here in Orlando, and we used to play that. We used to play it all the time, and just people would be like, "What the hell is this bull crap?" I'm like, "That's Vanilla Ice." They're like, "That's not Vanilla Ice." I'm like, "Dude, I'm telling you." Yeah, he came out looking like Crazy Town around that time, but yeah, that was good stuff. All right, Chad, I really appreciate it, man. Thank you so much for being a part of the podcast. So great to meet you finally after all these years and talk to you and break down the new record. Best of luck to you and success on Gainsayer, man. Love it.
Thank you for your support of Bridge the Gap. I'm so stoked to be with you. And like I was telling you before the show, man, you do so much for punk rock and like up and coming bands or bands who are trying to break into a bigger awareness. And the videos you share on Instagram, dude, like it's so, you can feel the love in it, dude. Like you can feel that you're just doing it because this is where the passion goes. And the fact that it helps other bands, great. But like, thanks for what you do with Signal Chords. Love your podcast, dude. You're great, brother. Man. Appreciate the time coming on. And I didn't even actually look at the clock once, which is unusual. That's like only usually like when I'm talking to my friends or something. So we must be buddies now, Brad.
Yeah, man. Well, your podcast family, anything you need, I got your back. We got your back. I like to say we because my title is plural, and I always feel weird by saying we, but it's actually just me. But
the royal we.
Yeah, the royal we. But dude, like I said, I'm a huge fan. Love what you guys are doing. Keep it up, man. And we'll see you down the road on the next record, and we'll interview you again and nerd out.
Sick, bro. Looking forward to it. Thanks, Brad.